Do you want us?
Time, April 12, 1945. Place, a street located anywhere in the United States.
Extra! Extra! Read all about it! President Roosevelt is dead! The president is dead!
Let me see that paper. Oh, the president is dead!
What's that?
No!
Did you say the president's dead? Did you hear that? The president's dead.
What, the president is dead?
Well, who's in charge now? Hey, Liddy, did you hear that? Roosevelt's dead. Now who's in charge?
I don't know. We're going to find out soon. Do you know who's in charge now?
In charge of what?
Didn't you hear? The president is dead! Extra! Extra! Read all about it! President Roosevelt is dead! The president is dead!
Scene 1. Date, April 12, 1945. Place, Washington, D.C., an office in the United States Senate building. Harry S. Truman, Vice President of the United States, is seated at a desk reading a newspaper. There's a knock at the door.
Come on in, the door's open. Oh, good morning, Donald. What can I do for you?
Mr. President, have you heard the news?
What news?
President Roosevelt is dead. He died this morning.
Oh, my.
I've also been instructed to inform you that you are wanted at the White House.
At the White House?
Yes, sir.
I have to call Bess.
Sir, there's no time for that. You have to report to the White House. Now, Mrs. Roosevelt wants to speak with you personally.
If the First Lady wants to speak with me, it must be about something very important.
That may be true, but she was insistent that she speak with you.
What can I say to her?
Sir, time is of the essence. The press will be waiting for you there.
What will I tell the press? Hello? Yes, I heard. Thank you, you're very kind. Please put me through to my wife. Hello, Bess. So you know. I've been summoned to the White House. Thank you, dear. I'm going to need all the help I can get.
Truman gets up and puts on his jacket and hat.
Okay, Donald, let's go.
My name is Agent Delbert O'Neill from the Secret Service, and I will be escorting you to the White House.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Are you ready, sir?
Yes, I am. Let's go.
End of scene 1. Scene 2. Time 1 week later. Place, the Oval Office, the White House, Washington, D.C. Truman is sitting behind the desk reading a newspaper. From off stage comes the sound of knocking at the door.
Come on in, the door's open.
A distinguished-looking man enters.
Oh, Secretary Stimson, good morning. I'm glad to see you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and a good morning to you.
Take a seat.
Stimson sits down in a chair opposite the president.
So, what can I do for you?
Mr. President, the question is, what can I do for you?
Yes, I know. I'm still getting used to the idea of being president. President Roosevelt's death was so unexpected, and he was such a great man. Now here I am, small-town fellow from Missouri, sitting in his office and in his chair. I feel like an imposter.
Mr. President, let me assure you that you have my full support and will continue to serve in your administration for as long as my services are desired.
That's really appreciated. I just hope I can do justice to this office.
You'll do just fine, Mr. President. I'm sure of it.
Okay, now that we've gotten these pleasantries out of the way, what's on your mind?
Mr. President, I want to inform you about a top secret program to develop a new weapon.
A new weapon? What kind of weapon?
Well, sir, for the past 2 years, scientists in Tennessee and Georgia have been working on a project to build a new type of bomb.
A new type of bomb? What is it? Come to the point.
You've heard of the Manhattan Project?
Yes, I have. Does this new bomb have anything to do with the Manhattan Project?
Yes, it does. Manhattan Project is a code name for the program to develop and build something called an atomic bomb.
Was Congress informed on this? Because I wasn't.
Sir, this project was approved by President Roosevelt and...
He never mentioned it to me, the real purpose of the project. All I knew about the Manhattan Project was that it was some kind of army program to build some kind of advanced weapon. That's it.
And I'm here now, Mr. President, to inform you about the actual nature of this advanced weapon.
Go on, I'm all ears.
Sir, as I already said, the goal of the project is to build an atomic bomb.
What is an atomic bomb?
Well, I'm not much of a scientist or military man, but I think I can explain what it is. An atomic bomb is a bomb that will release a huge amount of energy through a chemical process called nuclear fission.
Nuclear fission? I've never heard of that. Explain it to me.
Well, nuclear fission is, if I understand it correctly, a process whereby atoms, in this case atoms of uranium, are split open, thereby releasing a tremendous amount of energy. This bomb will house the uranium that will be split.
So the bomb would be fueled by uranium.
Yes, sir.
Where would we get the uranium?
From uranium ore imported from Canada.
So the Canadians are in on this project too?
Now, Mr. President, this is an entirely American project.
Has Churchill been informed?
Mr. Churchill was informed that we were working on a secret project, but was not provided details.
What about Marshal Stalin?
That coming? Absolutely not. This program is top secret.
How powerful is this bomb?
Nobody knows yet, but it's estimated that it can create a blast strong enough to destroy an entire city.
One bomb that could destroy an entire city? That's unbelievable. How much would the bomb weigh?
Well, that's a problem still being worked on. The actual bomb may weigh several tons, but it still has to be tested.
Who else in the government knows about this new bomb?
The scientists working on the project and the senior army commanders in charge of the project. That's the us.
So, from what you're telling me, we may be on the way to having a new kind of weapon powered by something called nuclear fission that can destroy an entire city in one blast.
That's about the size of it, sir.
This could change the way wars are fought. Who needs armies and fleets of planes dropping bombs when one bomb could do the trick?
I'm not a military man, sir, but the implications seem obvious.
This news couldn't come at a better time. We can knock the Germans out of the war with one punch. Wait a minute. Have the Germans been working on a new type of bomb too?
According to our intelligence sources, the Germans were working on a similar project.
Well, how far along are they?
I'm not sure, but the papers captured in Strasbourg, France, where they have their laboratories, seems like they weren't even close to building a bomb.
That's a relief. But I don't want to take any chances. While the Nazis are still fighting, we can't let them get the bomb first. Hitler having such a weapon would be catastrophic for us. Look at all the damage he caused with those V-2 rockets.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. President.
What was President Roosevelt's plan for this new bomb?
He never discussed that, at least not with me. However, he was in favor of developing such a weapon.
I wish I'd been informed of this earlier, but I'm glad you informed me now. Between dealing with the Japs and the Nazis, I have my hands full. I feel like a man with a blindfold feeling his way through a maze in the dark. I know there's a correct path somewhere, but I don't know exactly where. You understand?
Yes, sir, I understand, and we at the State Department are behind you.
Okay. Keep me informed on the status of the project, especially when the bomb will be scheduled for testing.
Yes, Mr. President, I will. Have a good day.
Stinson gets up and exits. Truman picks up the phone.
Get me General Marshall. Hello, General Marshall? This is President Truman. I'm fine, thank you. Yes, we all miss President Roosevelt. Yes, he was a great man. Thank you for the kind words. Do you know anything about us building something called an atomic bomb? You do? Looks like I'm the last one to know. Don't worry about it, I'm not faulting you. I just want you to keep me fully informed on how the project is proceeding. Will you do that? Fine. Oh, say hello to your wife for me. You're welcome.
Truman hangs up the phone.
Sons of bitches. They're treating me like I'm a child. Maybe I gotta start kicking some butt.
End of scene 2. Scene 3. Date May 8th, 1945. Place the Oval Office. President Truman is sitting at his desk reading a newspaper. From off stage comes the sound of knocking at the door.
Come on in.
Mr. President, General Marshall is here to see you.
Does he have an appointment?
No, sir, but he told me that it was urgent.
You know that I normally don't like meeting anyone without an appointment.
I know, sir, but he told me that he rushed over to see you about a matter of utmost importance.
All right, show him in.
General Marshall enters, Donald turns to exit.
You stay. General Marshall, what can I do for you?
Mr. President, have you heard the news?
What news?
Germany surrendered today. It's official. The war is over.
It's about time those sons of bitches surrendered. But the war still isn't over. We still have to deal with the Japs.
That's true, Mr. President. But once they learn that the Germans have folded, they'll follow suit.
Yeah, maybe, but for some reason I doubt that. They just seem too pig-headed to think clearly.
Now that the Germans are out, we can transfer troops to the Pacific and finish out the Japs.
I don't think the American public would be too happy about that. Millions of our soldiers have been away from home for 2 and even 3 years.
I'm aware of that, Mr. President, but if we send the troops over the Pacific now, we'll bring this war to a rapid conclusion.
You think so? The Japs don't seem like they're ready to quit. How many men have we lost so far in Okinawa?
Quite a lot, but all within acceptable limits, Mr. President.
Acceptable limits? That sounds good on paper, but not to those families who've lost a son or a daughter or a father.
We're at the verge of winning. It's just a matter of time, Mr. President.
But when? No matter how much damage we inflict on them, the Japs won't stop fighting. You know anything about these kamikazes?
Yes, Mr. President. They're Jap suicide bombers.
Do you think that an enemy willing to kill themselves is going to surrender?
They can throw all the kamikazes they want at us. That won't stop us from winning.
No, I know that, General. The problem is that our casualty figures are increasing rapidly, which is giving me a lot of cause for concern. But if the Japs think that they're going to bleed us until we throw in the towel, then they have something else coming to them. I'll tell you that right now.
Mr. President, let me state this categorically. We're not going to lose this war.
Who said anything about losing? But this war cannot go on indefinitely. I have to think about the American people. And right now, I can't tell them when the war will end, and that's a problem.
Then that is why we need to transfer the troops from Europe to the Pacific as soon as possible.
Have you not understood anything I have said? The people are getting tired of the war. It's costing us a lot of lives. We need to get this war finished quickly. By the way, if we do reduce the number of troops from Europe, what will the Russians do?
I presume that they will abide their agreements made at Yalta.
But still, how can I be certain that the Russians won't try to grab all of Germany?
The Russians took heavy losses in Berlin. They're in no shape to pick up a fight with us.
Well, the same thing's being said about the Japs in Okinawa. Yet we're still fighting, and for what?
I don't quite understand your question, sir.
Why are we fighting the Japs in the first place?
Because the Japs attacked us at Pearl Harbor, Mr. President.
Don't sass me, General. I have no patience for that.
Sir, please accept my apology. I did not mean to offend. You posed a question and I replied.
Well, I didn't like the tone of your reply.
And with all due respect, sir, could you kindly explain what it is you're driving at?
Look, General, it's like this. Remember when the Japs started the war with China in 1937?
Of course, sir.
Well, everybody got on the Japs, including us. But what I can never understand is why we were so hot and bothered over the Japs going to China in the first place.
Probably because the Japs were flagrantly violating the open door policy.
Yes, I know that, General. I'm not completely ignorant. Well, was that enough of a reason for us to want to risk a war with the Japs?
I would say yes.
And that's because...
Because the United States had vital interest in China and the Pacific, which had to be defended.
What vital interests?
Mr. President, I'm a military man, not a diplomat, and the issues you are raising are a bit outside of my area of authority or expertise.
I'm just trying to make heads or tails of why we got into this war in the first place. Sometimes I think it would have been better if we left the Japs alone. Let them deal with China, you know? Let China become their problem and save ourselves a lot of grief, such as Pearl Harbor, Wake Island, and Bataan.
Mr. President, what you are talking about is called appeasement. Neville Chamberlain tried that with Hitler and it did not work. There is no reason to believe that it would have worked with the Japanese. The Japs were bent on conquest and would not listen to reason.
Well said, General. But still, I have to find some way to explain to all those mothers out there why their sons are still dying on the battlefield.
Let me assure you, Mr. President, that you have my full support, and once again, thank you for meeting me on such a short notice.
Thank you too, General, for informing me about that new weapon.
My pleasure, Mr. President.
General Marshall gets up and exits.
Boy, what a stuffed shirt he is. I wouldn't have wanted him as my company commander in the First War. Do me a favor, will you?
Yes, sir.
Could you please arrange to have the kitchen deliver a ham and cheese sandwich on white bread to the Oval Office?
Of course, sir. Is there anything else you may need?
No, that's it for now.
Donald exits. Truman picks up the newspaper and resumes reading. End of scene 3. Scene 4. Time. 1 week later, 11 p.m. Place. A bar located a few blocks away from the White House. The lights are dim. Behind the bar is a bartender. Sitting at the bar is a middle-aged man named Sal DiMartino, who is sipping on a drink. A few feet to his left are President Truman and Donald, who are disguised as factory workers.
Sir, I don't think it was a good idea to come here. The Secret Service finds out, we'll have a fit.
Let me worry about the Secret Service.
The bartender approaches Truman and Donald.
What will it be, gents?
Nothing for me.
Oh, don't listen to him. 2 beers.
Okay, Bob, 2 beers coming up.
The bartender starts pouring 2 beers from a tap.
Would any of you gents mind if I turn on the radio? Liven up the place a little?
That's a good idea, my good man.
The bartender brings over the beers.
Okay, fellas, here's your beers. That'll be 4 bits.
I'll pay for it, sir.
No, I'll take care of it.
Truman takes out 5 quarters from his jacket pocket and places them on the counter.
The 5th quarter is for you.
Thanks. Every little bit helps. You get it? Every little bit?
That's a good joke. Very funny. Don't you think that's funny?
Yes, sir. Very funny.
The bartender walks over to the radio and turns it on. Music can be heard.
Sir, I really think we should leave and get back to the White House before they find out what we missed.
Oh, stop worrying.
Mr. President!
Don't call me Mr. President here. The last thing I need is for anyone to find out who I am. This is the only way I can make real contact with the people and find out what is really on their minds and what's bugging them. And I can't do that from the Oval Office or while parading around in my official capacity. Do you understand?
I do, mister. I mean, sir, but what will your wife say when she finds out that you're gone?
Oh, not to worry. My wife's a sound sleeper.
Whatever you say, sir.
Good. Now stop pestering me and drink your beer.
The president and Donald start sipping on their beers. A frail elderly man named Gregory enters the bar. He glances around the bar and approaches Truman.
Why, hello, gentlemen. Mind if I join you?
Oh, please do. There's plenty of seats.
Gregory sits next to Truman.
Could you buy a guy a drink?
Of course. What do you have?
Gin and tonic?
My good sir, this gentleman would like a vodka and tonic.
Why, thank you. What's your name?
My name's Harry. And yours?
Gregory.
It's a great name, and you look like a very nice man.
The bartender brings over the drink.
That'll be 50 cents.
Truman hands the bartender a $1 bill.
Keep the change.
Thanks, Mac.
My, you are quite a big spender.
Thank you, my dear man, but let me assure you that I do not spend money needlessly. We understand the value of money where I come
Where's that?
from. Missouri. Have you ever been there?
No. Further I ever traveled was to Akron, Ohio, to attend my late wife's funeral. And that was a bust. No funny to let me out of a will.
Oh, that must have been disappointing.
Yeah, it was. But what was I to do? It was only through the help of friends I was able to get back to Washington.
You must have good friends. None of my friends are worth a dime.
Yes, they were good friends.
Fine gentlemen like you should have good friends.
Truman, Donald, and Gregory sip on their drinks.
Well, what are you doing out now this time of night?
I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd go for a walk and maybe meet a new pal.
Well, I think you came to the right place.
I think I did too.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm retired. Right now, I'm looking for a job just to keep busy.
Oh, you hear that? Gregory here is looking for a job. Is there an opening on our staff?
I don't know, sir, but I can find out.
Good. Find out. Tell me more about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Baltimore.
And here's this evening's top stories. Fighting continues to rage on at Okinawa as the Japanese continue to put up stiff resistance. According to sources at the battle, the Japs have gone all out to push our soldiers off the island and have also started attacks on our ships with suicide planes called kamikaze. Losses on both sides have been high. In other news...
Turn that whole thing off!
Hey, take it easy, no need to yell.
Oh, sorry, Mac. My son's in Okinawa and that report upset me.
Hey, that's done.
I don't know if he's alive or dead.
You know, Harry, the world's in a real mess.
I know, friend.
When will this war end?
That's what a lot of people are wondering.
Roosevelt would have known what to do. But that new guy Truman is doing nothing. What good is he? Since he's become president, we've lost more soldiers than the entire previous 2 years. I thought the Japs were ready to surrender. What the hell is going on?
I think he's upset with the president.
I know that too, my friends. Well, I think it's about time for us to get going.
Well, I hope to see you again.
I have a feeling you will. Oh, would you please give me an address where I can reach you?
Gregory takes out a pen from his jacket pocket and writes his address on a napkin and gives it to Truman.
This way you can find me.
Gregory gives the napkin to Truman, who then gives it to Donald.
Time to leave.
Donald and Truman get up from their stools and are leaving. Before exiting, Truman goes over to the man at the bar.
I hope your son comes through it safe and sound. He's serving his country, and for that you should be proud.
Thanks, Matt.
What's your name?
Sal DiMartino. Yours?
My name is Harry. Glad to meet you.
Truman extends his hand and Sal takes it. They shake hands firmly.
Take care.
Unnoticed by the others, Truman and Donald are exiting, but right before they go off stage, Truman signals Donald to stop. When off to the side, both stop, turn around, and watch the action on stage.
You know, that guy looked pretty familiar.
Now that you mention it, he did.
Nah, no way.
You're right, it couldn't have been.
Hey, mister, you care to talk?
Get lost, bum.
Yeah, you heard it, it's crammed.
Hey, mister, I heard what you said about your son. My grandson's been missing in action since April. And if we don't get a word from him soon, I don't know what we're gonna do. He's only 19.
Gregory starts crying. Sal gets off his stool, goes over to Gregory and embraces him. Gregory continues to cry on Sal's shoulder. Truman and Donald saw and heard everything.
I've heard enough. Let's go. Also, make sure you contact Gregory first thing tomorrow and offer him a job. Preferably on the White House staff so that you can look in on him. And if he refuses, you go to his home and tell him that he is directed to report to the White House by order of the President of the United States. We can't have old people going around crying.
Yes, Mr. President.
End of scene 4. Scene 5. Date, July 16, 1945. Place, the Oval Office. Truman is sitting at his desk reading the newspaper. Donald enters.
Mr. President, Secretary Stimson and General Marshall wish to see you now. They say it's urgent.
Now what? With these fellas, it's never good news. Do me a favor, bring me some Pepto-Bismol, because I know my stomach is going to be doing flip-flops.
Yes, sir.
Show the gents in.
Donald opens the door. Stimson and Marshall enter. Donald exits.
Please, sit down. What is the purpose of your visit today?
Mr. President, we have great news. We have just been informed that the atomic bomb was tested this morning, and the results were successful beyond our wildest expectations.
We now have a weapon that can end this war.
Not only did the bomb detonate without a hitch, it's now light enough that it can be delivered to a target by one B-29.
Sir, I would strongly recommend that you keep this information under wraps for the time being.
Why?
We don't want to tip off the Japs, because if we do, then we'll lose the element of surprise.
Precisely, Mr. President.
How powerful is this new weapon?
According to scientific estimates, the blast is equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT.
Oh my, that can do a lot of damage.
It certainly can, Mr. President, which is why it is most fortunate that we have this weapon and not somebody else.
Yes, that is most fortunate.
Now it's a question of when we will use it.
And where?
Any suggestions?
I can't answer that right now, Mr. President, but I'll get back to you with a list of potential targets.
Oh, please do, soon.
Yes, sir.
Of course, Mr. President, none of this would be necessary if the Japs agreed to surrender.
Any word on whether the Japs are ready to surrender?
Well, we've been sending out our feelers through diplomatic intermediaries, but so far, nothing constructive.
Well, what is it they want?
They want to keep their emperor.
But they've been fighting in the name of the emperor. I don't think that's acceptable, sir.
But the emperor, Mr. President, is a symbol of their nation, and for us to insist on them giving up their emperor may be too much for them to accept, which means more fighting.
But Mr. President, if we let them keep the emperor, they may take that as a sign of weakness and on our part and not surrender. At least not now. And if we have to invade the Japanese home islands, the casualty figures could exceed 1 million killed and injured on the American side, and who knows how many millions on the Japanese side.
Are you certain about those figures?
Yes, sir, and those figures are conservative estimates.
And after Okinawa, would the American people be willing to sustain those kinds of losses?
Both you fellows make good points. When will this bomb be ready to use in the field?
We should have 2 bombs ready for deployment within the next 2 weeks.
Now, can we use this bomb without causing civilian casualties?
Mr. President, given the nature and power of this weapon, it is highly unlikely that civilian casualties could be completely avoided, but perhaps they could be kept to a minimum depending on where we decide to use the weapon.
What about inviting the Japs to watch a demonstration of the bomb somewhere in the ocean?
The Japs wouldn't go for that, they just see it as a ploy. And if the demonstration fails, then the military consequences would be disastrous. We'd lose all credibility with the enemies. Mr. President, either we use the bomb or we don't. The decision is yours.
Before I make a decision, maybe I ought to discuss this matter with the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations.
No, I urge you not to do that, sir. As the President of the United States, you are the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and have the final operational authority over this entire project. The decision is yours and yours alone to make. To pile it over to the Senate now would constitute a serious abrogation of presidential power. It would also cause others around the world to perceive the Chief Executive of the United States as being indecisive and weak, and lead to undue delay in the prosecution of the war, which we all agree needs to be concluded as quickly as possible.
You fellas have dropped a real hot potato in my lap. But as that placard says on my desk, the buck stops here. So I guess it's up to me now.
Stimson and Marshall exit. Donald enters with a glass of Pepto-Bismol.
Here's your Pepto-Bismol, sir.
Oh, thank you. I knew I'd need it.
End of scene 5.
Scene 6. Time, same date, 9 p.m. Place, living room inside the private headquarters of the White House. President Truman and his wife Bess are sitting in separate chairs. Truman is reading a newspaper, and Bess is reading a book.
What are you reading?
Reader's Digest.
Anything in there interesting?
Somebody wrote a short story about a world without war.
That'll be the day.
You have to be more optimistic, Harry.
I try, Bess, but it's hard. Every day it's something else. If it's not the war, then it's some labor strike or crime problem or race riot or some of the problems that just seem to defy solution.
But you're the president, so you're in a position to do something about them.
It's not quite as simple as that. No amount of training can ever fully prepare anyone for the job of president. It's like no other job in the world.
You sound a little down. What's the matter?
Today, Secretary Stimson and General Marshall brought me some momentous news.
Do you want to discuss it?
Oh, I don't want to burden you. You're burdened enough already with you being the First Lady and having to put up with me and my moodiness.
Well, you have your job and I have mine. Now, what's the problem?
Today, I was told that we have a bomb with the strength equal to 20,000 tons of TNT.
It's a pretty powerful bomb.
That's what I said too.
So what's the issue?
The war is dragging on, and Even though we've pounded just about every Jap city into rubble, they're still refusing to surrender, which means that we may have to invade their islands, an action which may cost us over 1 million casualties, which is something I doubt the American public would be willing to support, especially if we have a weapon, meaning this new bomb, that could make such an invasion unnecessary.
So your choices are either to invade or use this new weapon?
That's correct.
So what's the problem?
Well, the problem is that this weapon could probably wipe out an entire city with one blast, meaning a whole lot of civilians would be killed. I'm not too comfortable with that.
But why use it on a city?
That's where the Jap military targets are located.
I understand. What about the Japanese being given a demonstration or a warning?
I asked about that too, and I was told those options are off the table. Either we use it with no prior warning or not. The decision is mine, and this is an awful decision to make.
Have you considered discussing this matter with some of your friends up in the Senate?
Both Stimson and Marshall warned me not to do that, and I'm inclined to agree with them.
Why?
Well, this is a military operation, and therefore, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the decision is mine.
Well, I have complete confidence that you'll make the correct decision, one that will take into consideration the best interests of our country.
Thank you, dear. I don't know what I would have ever done without you.
End of scene 6.
Scene 7. Date, August 2nd, 1945. Time, 6 p.m. Place, the living room in a house in Falls Church, Virginia. Sal DeMartino is sitting in the living room with his wife, Louise. There's a knock on the door.
I'll see who it is.
Telegram for you. Just sign here.
No.
What is it? Headquarters, United States Army, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. and Mrs. DiMartino, it is a sad duty to inform you that your son, Sergeant Joseph DiMartino, was killed in action on Okinawa. Sincerely, General C. Marshall, Chief of Staff, United States Army.
Our boy is dead. Our little boy is dead.
I know.
God, no.
Oh, he's a good boy. When will this damn war end?
Hideki Tojo, Prime Minister of Japan, enters the scene.
That this woman, a loving mother, and this man, who is a good and caring father, are feeling such anguish is regrettable. As a parent myself, I can commiserate with them. Their son is dead. Such grievous loss is like a gaping wound that will never completely heal. Yet all of this fighting and suffering could have been avoided if the United States government had not been so obstinate in its demands and had adopted a more understanding and conciliatory attitude. While America was pursuing outdated policies, Japan wanted to bring peace, order, and prosperity to East Asia, which is Japan's neighborhood, not America's. Japan wanted to work with America, not against America. Yet America opposed Japan, their faithful ally in the First War, leaving the emperor no choice but to defend his people against the kind of encroachment that no nation could be accepted to tolerate. Now the fighting continues. More mothers and fathers will be weeping, and more brave soldiers will die.
On Okinawa, American losses totaled over 6,000 killed and injured. Japanese losses exceeded 100,000. End of scene 7.
The time, August 6, 1945. The place, the kitchen in my house in Hiroshima, Japan. My name is Yoko Watanabe. I'm washing dishes in a sink. My 2 children, a girl age 9 and a boy age 6, are playing in the yard outside. Suddenly there is a bright flash of light, followed by intense heat, and a blast which smashes the windows, sending glass flying and throwing me to the floor. As the smoke clears, I struggle to get to my feet. I am bleeding profusely from my nose, ears, and mouth. I stagger to the window, I look out at the scene, and I'm horrified. My children, my children. God, please, God, not my children.
Stop your crying. Remember, you are Japanese and we are at war. There is work to be done. We must prepare to defend the homeland against the barbarian invaders. That the enemy is now resorting to horrible super weapons is proof of their weakness, not ours. Japan will never surrender.
Get up, you say? Prepare to defend ourselves, you say? Are you serious? And for what? For what?
It is the Emperor's will.
3 days later, on August 9th, a second atomic bomb would be dropped in the Japanese city of Nagasaki. Both bombs together killed over 200,000 people. End of scene 8.
Scene 9, date August 14th, 1945. Place, the Oval Office. President Truman is sitting behind the desk reading a newspaper. Donald enters.
Secretary Stinson is waiting outside. I would like to meet with you.
Show him in.
Donald
President
opens the
will
door. Stimson enters, Donald exits.
Have a seat.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have great news. We've just received word that Japan has agreed to surrender.
It's about time.
Mr. President, it is very astute of you to agree to let them keep their emperor.
Astute nothing. I wanted to end this war, and if it took letting that warmongering fool have his throne, then let him have it. It wasn't worth sacrificing any more American lives. For the life of me, I will never figure out why it took 2 atomic bombs to get the Japs to surrender.
It was their fanaticism that got them into trouble in the first place.
Yes, maybe you're right. But whatever the case, I'm glad that they finally came to their senses.
I've been in contact with General MacArthur. He will oversee